Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Jillian. So, yeah, today is Saturday, and I did a lot of marketing last night, and I created a few events, which may seem like duplicates, but Facebook only allows you to invite only so many people per day. So, I found a way to figure out Facebook. So, anyways, I wanted just to make sure that people have it in their head to check out Jelly Juice around June. I'm actually crossing my fingers that right at around June 1st, it'll be a good time to have a book launch. And it's not anything physical, it'll just be like online. It just says, hey, make sure you look for the link come June because it'll be there at some point. So, anyways, I've been writing my other book too, and I would say it's a little difficult. Or not say difficult. It's challenging to try to explain the relationships between body, mind, and spirit, politics, religion, and science. Now, you could itemize it and say, okay, these are the relationships. This is where they seem to have similarities, but trying to explain it and show the similarities and the relationships, and then how it affects the overall world and how compartmentalized our society is and subjective, but it's for a reason. I mean, you have university, you have occupations, you have classes in colleges that are very subjective, hence subject matters. And then when you have occupations and industries that are very subjective, not many people will know the bigger picture. They'll be very good at their one subject matter or two or three, but they are within a very, very tight sphere of jargon. And if somebody's in science, they can't see the value of religion or what that means. And if someone's in religion, they really don't like using the science world. And then some people who are in science and religion hate politics. I'm like, how do you hate politics? I mean, I don't love the back and forth, but I understand it. I mean, I already know what Democrats, Republicans, conservative versus liberal, what that all means. I mean, conservative is more tight, liberal is more open. The conservative is very individualistic, liberal is very collective, though they both have shades of each other, but that is the split. That is what our society is run by, are the two extremes. And then you have shades of in between. And so that then speaks to the macro and the micro level of your body, the split of certain characteristics in your body going from one extreme to the other, and working from a very subjective point of view based upon even your upbringing, your education. And then we have Maslow, which I was studying yesterday. Now, I'm not studying him like all of his methodologies, but Maslow's ladder is what I would have been focusing on because it is a model that a lot of people in the psychological world use as a way to measure success in our society. And then now I'm proposing, I was doing my own little diagrams of how I actually want to compose society and how would I model it. And so I took Maslow's ladder and I put the two bases together to where now you have two triangles, okay? And on each end is where someone's self-actualized. And that is not the end all be all. That's where you start from. That's what it is. Self-actualization is where you start from, and then you go into community. So you still keep your individual self and you know yourself, but now you understand how to contribute to your community, because in your cells, they're not just by themselves. You know, you're made of a world full of cells, a microbiome. And so when people start aging and degrading, it's because they have cancer cells in their body and degraded cells in their body, and they don't know how to work nicely or play in the sandbox nicely with other cells. And they tend to be by themselves. They send off wrong messages, or they just die off, and then they don't contribute to the whole. And then the whole doesn't work anymore because the individual cells are not working collaboratively together. And so, I've been accused of like, you should collaborate. Well, only if they're on the same wavelength. Okay? Only if they're on the same wavelength. And so for me to collaborate with anyone, I have to know that we're on the same page. And so there are people that I get along with, and they're queen bees in their world. They're not exactly like health gurus, doing what I'm doing. They have their own pond that they are king and queen of, and that's great. And then we have an understanding of how Jelly Juice is, and they see how it works in their world, and there is no conflict. Okay, so that's like when two cells get together and they create and replicate offspring who are another functional cell. And so that's what the whole Georgia Guidestone is all about, is guiding reproduction carefully. Because when you have two cells that are very diametrically opposed, they're always in conflict, one is a victim, one's an abuser, and they get together and they disappear, and they have divorces and they have issues and they have so much, drama, and their kids are now affected. And so now it basically mars and jades their offspring. And so their offspring are then going to repeat the same mistakes. No different than when you get a ferment that doesn't taste very good, and then you use that ferment to seed your next ferment with your next batch, it's going to have the same exact taste because the offspring are going to be exactly the same. You put a parent, which is your prior ferment, in a new ferment, you add all your ingredients, they're going to ferment the same way it did before. So when you want to start off new, you create a new jar with new cabbage and new kale and new salt and water, and then it has a whole different taste. It won't taste like your old ferment or the one that was prior that you didn't really like. Because sometimes ferments don't taste good, but this doesn't really happen so often now with the white salt because we don't have so many minerals. But when there were so many minerals in the pink salt, people had fluctuations of different tasting ferments based upon how many minerals were in that jar at the time. Okay, based upon the pink salt. So my world that I'm trying to create, even if it's a virtual world, it's a pie in the sky thing, is where you already come off self-actualized. That's already a point of where you already are self-actualized, and now you're going up the rung of the ladder to then integrate to community. And so I've taken Maslow's ladder, turned it upside down, then added another ladder or pyramid, put the base together, and then in the middle is the community. It's the balance. Okay? Because Maslow died at 65 or 62 or something. He was born in 1908 and died in 1970. Oh, he's 62. Yeah, he was 62. He died from a heart attack. Was he self-actualized? I don't think so. Well, see, here's the thing. What is self-actualization? I mean, self-actualization is where you can be all that you can be, and there's specific characteristics, but that could be, they don't say, well, okay, like with Maslow, let me look this up real quick. With Maslow's ladder, because you can interpret Maslow's characteristics of meeting psychological, physiological needs, and you can interpret it in any way, shape, or form, and it would be fine. Everyone at this point right now would be self-actualized based upon Maslow. So hold on. I wasn't really prepared to go. I wasn't really planning to go this direction, but it just kind of happened that way. That's okay. Actually, let me do this. I'll go to my pictures. All right. Maslow's ladder. So in Jillian's world with Maslow's ladder, you are already self-actualized. Okay? You don't need to go through the baser needs. So there's physiological needs, there's safety needs, there's social needs, there's self-esteem needs, and there's self-actualization needs. And so this specific ladder doesn't go into complete detail, but some of the ladders will say for physiological needs, it's sleep, shelter, food, water, reproduction, all your baser level type of needs, instincts, okay? And that's also why I've been focusing on like baser instincts, because we need to evolve from always morphing our body and being so conscious of our body to a higher level of thought, which right now is very lacking because people are too worried about their bodies, and they're not paying attention to their minds and their spirit. Okay, then there's safety needs, make sure they're safe, make sure, you have shelter, you have all that stuff. And then social needs, I'm going to find a more hold on. I'll find a more descriptive form, because that's from Creative Commons, which doesn't go into great detail, but it gets the point across, which is fine. I don't want to pay for very specific stuff. Creative Commons is where you can actually utilize their information in commercial books without having to pay for it. But it's so basic that it doesn't give you a whole lot. Okay, so the Jelly Juice world, you're already self-actualized, okay? But in Maslow's world, as you are growing up, you have to meet these specific needs in order to be self-actualized. And so we want to like guide reproduction carefully. We don't want to have everybody just reproducing, on bodies that are so messed up, because then it becomes what we have right now, total chaos. But Maslow, he is saying that if you meet these specific requirements up this ladder, you are getting higher and higher in the rungs to where at some point you'll be self-actualized, okay? So he's saying, air, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing, reproduction is the physiological needs, which I've been focusing on. Then the safety needs is personal security, employment, resource, health, and property. Okay, so you finally, you have shelter, you have food, you have security, you have employment, you have resources you have access to. And then he goes love and belonging, which is still a very baser instinct, friendship, intimacy, family, sense, and connection. Okay, so now you're part of a whole family, you have intimacy, you have a bunch of, people around, a bunch of cells around you. Okay, that's supposed to show that you are, on your way up the ladder, right? Then esteem, you have respect. By who? Self-esteem, status, by who? You could be a status in a family of 5. Okay, so recognition, strength, and freedom. Okay, that's all very relative to what? And then self-actualization is desire to become the most that one can be. Okay, so by this ladder alone, all of us are self-actualized based upon what we feel we are capable of doing, and then what our roles are in our world. Now, if you are an island unto yourself and you don't have any kind of connections, you have nobody around you, you have no community, you have nothing to offer to anybody, yeah, you're not going to have any kind of part in this. This is not going to at all meet any of your requirements, and you're not going to meet its requirements, because you're like Tom Hanks on an island with a stupid coconut with a face on it. Obviously, according to Maslow, he's not self-actualized. But according to this model, everybody is self-actualized, even a person that may have a major disability. Okay? So then really, what does this mean? When you think about it, what does this mean? Because everything is relative to your perception of what respect is, what self-esteem is, what status is, what recognition is, what strength is, what freedom is. So what happens is you go from a base where it's just a base level where we're all trying to, right now, we're all like a community, we're all trying to help each other out in making sure we get our air, food, water, shelter, sleep, clothing, reproduction. Okay? And so that's the base, and then it gets narrow as you go up. So why this is the pyramid, it kind of says to me that the pyramid is where very few people reach the top. Well, that's a very, I don't believe that. I think everybody is self-actualized. It's a matter of what perspective, and then how what you feel is a characteristic of that. Could a person with many disabilities be self-actualized? Yeah, I think so, because they would still meet all these requirements. But if you're by yourself, like the Unabomber, by yourself, well, even the Unabomber is self-actualized because he has recognition. He's still around people. I mean, yeah, I don't think anyone that's I don't think there's anyone that is not self-actualized. So this model is like, doesn't make sense. So now what I'm saying is that in the Jelly Juice world, we're not trying to become so about self, because that's what this model is saying, that it's more about self and not about the community. And so when you finally are healthy and you don't have anomalous cell replication in your body, and you are able to give of yourself without sacrificing yourself and your body and your mind and your spirit, then can we see the type of utopia that people are talking about. Because utopia does exist. We just haven't created bodies that are able to handle and manifest that. And so we have technology, we have brains, we have formulas, we have foundational sciences and engineering and all of these different subject matters that people can specialize in. And then we get the brains together, and then we start creating the society that we want. But first we have to get all of the different bodies on board. And that's difficult when people are like trying to get information across to people is like herding kittens. Herding. So someone that is self-actualized now knows their sense of self, and then they can see, and that they become very subjective. So when you are a subjective person and you're only about yourself and all of your issues and stuff, that's what people who are elderly, they say that someone who's like, like Bill Gates is self-actualized. No, he's becoming more into himself, and now we are questioning whether or not his methods of contributions are actually effective for the masses. And so obviously the response that Bill Gates is getting is not what he used to get way back when he first started. Okay, so that should tell you something, that at this point he is now more about himself than really he is about community. He's not listening to his critics. He's not understanding that there's another equation that is not being put out there. And if he learned how to collaborate with someone like Jilly Juice, he can use the vaccines as a way to upgrade the community, and the Jilly Juice would support the body to handle the upgrade. But remember, he's too into himself. So that's why he's getting the bad press. I get it. All right. So, sobriety and Jilly Juice can work with everybody, but it's a matter of, are you willing to promote it in a way where what you're doing is not undermining the actual benefits. Okay. And that's where I'm waiting for people around me to get on board and understand, so I can then collaborate on an equal playing field. I'm not trying to teach someone on one-on-one. I'm not trying to convince them or, feel like every single time I say something, it's going to be a dispute. I don't want that kind of world. I want a world where people understand each other, and without having to sell them or teach them something, because they already know, they've done their research, they get where I'm coming from because they understand the bigger picture. They're not so subjective. So when you come from self-actualization in the Jilly Juice world, now it's working into how do you work with the community, where you have a balance of esteem, love, belonging, safety needs, and physiological needs, where it's not just a rung where you meet them. You have them all, but now you're not about self, you're about the community and how you get the community to work as a whole, like in the body, where everything is working symbiotically together, collaborating without too much conflict. And if there is conflict, it's very minimal. You don't even see it. But when there's conflict, that's when you have cancer, disease, and chronic illness. Okay? So right now with Maslow's hierarchy, based upon our society and his body dying at 62 from a heart attack, he had conflict ever since he came, when he was born, all the way up to where he has, promoted the whole self-actualization. There was conflict every rung up the ladder. And so now the Jilly Juice world is saying, okay, we don't want conflict in the body, mind, and spirit. We don't want to have to run up an uphill battle in the body, mind, and spirit. And it's about communities working symbiotically together where there is no conflict. And that really is like a utopia. You can call it peace, but will there really ever be peace within your body? It just depends on how the environment is. But the environment is predicated upon the biodiversity and the elements. And, right now we are seeing the sun go around, or the earth go around the sun. Okay. There are fluctuations. There are things in the universe that do affect the ebb and flow of our environment. And so there's always going to be changes. It happened millions and billions of years ago. It's going to happen now, but humans do have an influence and an impact on the environment as well as biodiversity. And okay, we get that. You can still adapt to it. Humans do have an influence on the elements and weather. Okay, well, you're going to have to adapt to it until the people who are that chaotic, who are causing all the storms, eventually destroy their genetic line. And that sucks, but that's kind of how it works, is that eventually there's going to be a human reset if it's not happening already. Okay, and you're seeing it happening with this virus. The people who are strong enough will survive it. Those that are not, are not. And then right there, if they don't have any kids, that genetic line has been destroyed. Okay, and so you know, this is pretty. This is pretty advanced. Yesterday, I was just when I was writing the stuff, and I'm listening to the record. I'm like my word program. I'm able to hear back what I'm saying, and I'm just like, oh my God, wow. Trying to explain the relationship between body, mind, and spirit, politics, religion, and science, and showing the similarities and how they are interconnected and interwoven, and it's not easy. Especially when people are so compartmentalized, so subjective, and just so like distant from each other. And that's because the jargon and the exclusivity. And when you are distancing yourself through jargon and exclusivity, no one's going to see the bigger picture. You can't possibly be objective when you are all about, well, I'm a lawyer, I'm a psychologist, and this is the end all be all, and my husband's an engineer, and he's the end all be all, and they're all hoity-toity and pompous, and then they're so subjective, they can't possibly be objective. And then you're aging and degrading. So those that have specialties in their areas are very subjective. They can't possibly be objective. They weren't trained to be objective. Any college graduate, see, here you go. Any college graduate will not be able to be truly objective in this world because they were never trained to be objective. Even the liberal arts majors are not very objective because liberal arts tells you what it is. Like, get an art degree. That's already telling you that's a very subjective point of view. I knew people in California that would go to these colleges and then get a liberal arts degree. Okay, what do you do with that? Well, it's okay, fine. But what do you do? What do you do? Go get a job in a liberal occupation? What is that? So college in of itself has created very subjective, compartmentalized people. And so when somebody is that compartmentalized and that subjective, it's difficult to get them out of their subjectivity. And that right there, just freaking, that was what the notion that I needed. That was the revelation. Colleges puts out subjective participants. If you have a college degree, it's going to be very difficult for you to get my information if you're that ingrained and that's attached to your degree and the status around it. So college graduates in specialized fields have a real problem with objectivity. So it would take a major biochemical change for a college graduate in a specialized field to understand objectivity in its truest sense. And that makes sense. Now I get it. 'Cause I had to figure out how the hell our society is so like, oh my God. That's why the mainstream doesn't like Jilly Juice. Because Jilly Juice is objective, and all of these, even the ones that are not college graduates, they're still subjective because they're listening to people who are subjective. So if you think that doctors are the end-all be-all and naturopathics are the end-all be-all, anyone with a college degree is somebody you should listen to, and any specialist is someone that you should listen to, then you are taking part in the subjectivity. You're taking part in that thought process to where you can't possibly, and there's no way you can be objective when you're only listening to authority. Authority is very subjective, but there's a reason why, because that's how they were trained, and that's how we're able to have society with the way that it is with people and their diversity. That's how they're able to control society with diversity. When you have so many diverse people with so many different capabilities, then yeah, you have to be able to compartmentalize and be subjective. However, this is what causes the problems in our society, because then one hand is what the other hand is doing, and they don't understand. It's Tower of Babel and all of that. Wow. All right, time for me to think some more on how I'm going to write this. But that just makes sense. So yeah, so all of these doctors in psychotherapy and psychology are extremely subjective, very non-objective, and they are working through the lens of their cancer, disease, chronic illness, because they're all dead, or most of them have died, and they have issues. So anyways, all right, that's all I'm going to say. But you guys, I'm doing my own stuff, but just wanted to give you that little slice of Jillian's mind. All right, bye.